Yo, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If it's your first time here, welcome. Now today we're gonna do a review of New Warriors Omnibus Vol.1. I just recently finished reading the whole thing and I will briefly skim through the physical build of it and so forth. But it's gonna be more about, I have some thoughts about the stories and whatnot, right? So let's get to it. Okay, this is the Dust Jacket Scotty Young cover. So on this one, the spine is different. I kind of like the way they did this where it has a full picture, but it has a line, see? So it shows like the background as well. Before it would just show a specific character and no background. Here it shows kind of like a full panel. That was pretty cool. Volume 1. And then here it shows all the covers that are included, all the issues included in the series. Now this will cover issues 1 through 26. Then it has Avengers issue 141, 142. Warriors Annual 1 and 2, Thor issue 411 and 412, New Mutants Annual 7, XMen Annual 15, X Factor Annual 6, Amazing Spider-Man Annual 26, Spectacular Spider-Man Annual 12, and Web of Spider-Man Annual 8. So all the X-Men Annuals would be one story, and all the Spider-Man Annuals would be another story arc. Here's the cover without the dust jacket. Pretty cool. I'm enjoying it. It's like a 2-page spread, but you can't see the rest of the picture because it shows this, the spine. I kind of would have, I seen some books have it where it shows the picture all the way through, but then it doesn't show this, the title, right? But we would have that on the dust jacket anyways. So I guess it's pick and choose, you know. I kind of would have liked to have the whole picture, but not a big deal. In the covers, yellow. You get this cool cover with like remastered coloring. Looks pretty good right here. I like the way it looks. I know remastered coloring usually looks good when it's on covers because they take their time with it. And when it's interiors, they kind of usually drop the ball. Letters, pencil, writers, you know, other people involved in making the book. As usual. Now with these older books, whenever it's older material from 90s and before, they have a table of contents, so it shows you issue 1, New Warriors, issue 1, July 1990, starts on page 1. Thor, issue 412, December of 1989, starts on page 42. So I really like this. It shows you the page, what issue, and when the issue was released, what month and year. So that's real cool. I always enjoy that. And some of the newer stuff, it doesn't do that. Now here's the cover. As with the Marvel omnibuses, at least these ones with classic material, it always shows you the full cover, but it always has like a border like this. So they always have that, so the cover would be a little smaller. Kind of wish the covers were the full page, but again, not a big deal. Here, when you see it start, this has a very Batman feel to it. You know, Batman constantly holds people over the ledges and stuff to get them to talk. So Night Thrasher, immediately, he gives that Batman feel. This is written by Fabian Nicieza, and artwork is by Mark Bagley. Sometimes you have a different artist when it's one of those annuals or a crossover like that Thor issue. Here you see one of, this is Night Thrasher, one of his main villains who was at first his partner. He had like a hero team with these two guys, their brother and sister. But then he started dating the sister. They became a superhero team. They had a fallout. I want you guys to read it so you can see what happens. But when it concentrates more on Night Thrasher, it has a very street level, gritty crime. Like if you like Batman, Punisher, you would enjoy this. He's very much a Batman type character at first. His parents died. He was left with a lot of money, so he wants to start a superhero team. So here you see them fighting, a lot of kung fu stuff. These characters here, they remind me a lot of like the old school games in the 80s, like Double Dragon and stuff like that. Most of the video games and movies, they were dressed kind of like rockers or like, you know, mohawks and all that kind of stuff, piercings. Because that's how we thought the bad guys looked, right? Because all those kids that were listening to metal and rock and all that. In the 90s, the villains' looks would change. Now it would be guys with baggy clothes and bandanas because now rap was in and that's how the bad guys look now, right? So it's crazy to see how it changes from decade to decade, right? Next issue, we get introduced to this guy, the Tinkerer. Now he's following all of them around to see their weaknesses and their powers. It's a way to introduce each character and show what his weaknesses, what his powers are, what his background is, like his origin story. So this way we get to know each character, right? It was a very creative way of doing it, having the villain kind of follow them around. Now we're on October, issue 4. we get introduced to the first super villain team they will face, the Psionics. So we got these characters right here. We get each one of their superpowers and stories right here. These characters ended up being pretty cool. Their designs look very like throwaway, but they ended up being not totally villainous. They were kind of being used and manipulated themselves, right? It was just people with issues, and they had no place to go, right? They were abandoned, and here Firestar kind of points that out. See here, she feels so alone, and I really like what the artist did here, Mark Bagley. You see her, they zoom her out more and more, so you see how the bigger the space looks, the smaller she looks, and the bigger you see is just nothing. Like she's so alone, right? And that art here definitely portrays that, and that's how these characters are feeling. These are psionics, and that's why they were easier to manipulate, and since they felt they had nobody. Okay, now here's their next villain, issue 5. His name is Star Thief. He's super powerful, and he's of Middle Eastern background, so he's Indian, and I bring that up because I noticed here every villain they were making, one was Irish, the other guy was Korean, then the next guy is like Japanese, so we always give them a different ethnicity. So it felt very much like X-Men, and Fabian Nicieza is writing this and X-Force at the time. So it definitely, he gave some of that X-Force feel to it, or like that X-Men universe, where it's very diverse. You have people from all kinds of walks of life, all kinds of different backgrounds, and they're all dealing with different types of issues of how they became a villain. But they always have shades of gray. None of them are truly villains. Most of these guys, at the end, you can almost say they turn good. Like they get reformed, right? Here is the next villain, the Bango. So he's not all bad. He turns out he's kind of just he has a good reason why he wants to kill who he wants to kill. He just kind of out for revenge, but he's not a bad person. And as you can see, Night Thrasher, he's almost kind of like a ninja himself. So one thing I noticed was Mark Bagley, like he had really cool character designs for each character, for the villains. None of them felt like throwaway villains. Like a lot of these felt like you could keep them around for the long run, right? Like they had a lot of room to grow, a lot of depth in their backgrounds. But the writer went almost to the point where he kind of made them good towards the end of the stories. So I don't know how you could keep them villainous when they almost felt like they understood what they did was wrong towards the end, and they kind of turn a new leaf towards the end of each story arc. Next villain, she's an Egyptian, kind of like how Apocalypse goes to sleep for a lot of years, like maybe like Dracula, like a vampire. This character does the same thing. She's been, in this casket for a long time as she rejuvenates or whatever. So again, this one is Egyptian. You see how each villain is from a different part of the world. She's carrying this thing she's the like big bad. Her story arc, you constantly see her make appearances in each story arc, but in the background, building her up, right? So I thought that was really well done as well. Now we got Punisher. This was a real cool story with Punisher. And he talks about how the New Warriors, at first he doesn't like them, then he's like, you know what, they're not that bad. They're kind of just trying to help. They sort of remind me of myself. I went through some stuff, and I started wanting to try to help and catch the bad guys, and that's what they're doing. So they're kind of learning as they go. Here we see Nova's costume. This costume sucks. Now, I did a few other videos as I was reading the book, like a reading blogs, and I pointed out how his costume sucks, Firestar's costume sucks, and like a lot of the designs, this is her costume, this Firestar, that I wasn't a fan of, mainly those two, right? And seeing as how Mark Bagley was so good at the character designs with the villains, I was like, what is he doing, right? Like they look so uninspired. Now, I normally don't read this stuff at the end, the extras and stuff. I just flip through the pictures and maybe skim through it. So I was reading this, and these are the original letters pages of back when these comics were coming out. And I found it funny because when I was reading this, a lot of people that they show here the pros, the good things fans had to say on their letters pages, and the bad things, right? So that's cool. It's very fair. You show both. If you thought it was constructive criticism, here they show how some of the people were saying, Firestar's costume is very plain, kind of lame. And then he's replying like, yeah, we'll work on that and whatever, right? He doesn't get offended and cry, oh, the fans are wrong and whatnot, right? They did not do that. They were very professional about it. And down the road, you see Firestar's costume. She gets a new costume, which is way better, in my opinion. It's a real nice design. And same with Nova. This was his old costume, and they were complaining about it, so they gave him a new costume. So I really like how they took what the fans were saying, and they're like, okay, this is some complaints we're getting. Why don't we work on that? Because we want the fans to keep reading the book, right? So that's something that I don't follow new, current, ongoing books a lot, but I hear that a lot. That when fans complain, the writers or artists, mainly the writers, they just get mad and they don't see like what is it, why is the book not selling. Like, you gotta read the cons as well, the criticism, so that you can know what is it the fans are not enjoying about the book, and you could kind of work on those things or fix them, right? Now here, this was like a promo they were showing. Look, with brick walls in the background. This was very popular in the 80s to put like brick walls or graffiti. And even the way it's drawn here looks very old school. So I really enjoyed this. They were showing how this was a pinup to promote we got a new superhero team, right, on the rise. It's the New Warriors. Here it is, the same one, but more modern coloring. Like, I wouldn't really say modern coloring. This was just polished up a little bit. Colors are brighter, they pop more. And look over here, they're like a little bit darker and more muddled. I don't mind when I get them that way either. It kind of gives you a little throwback of how they used to look and so forth. So yeah, a lot more to read here. I don't think I read all this, though. I read the other pages, however. So basically, the X-Men had this young team called the New Mutants. They were like the new X-Men, right? Which I thought they should have been called the New X-Men. But it turned out Stan Lee wanted the X-Men to be called the Mutants. So this new group was the New Mutants, right? But they changed the name to X-Men or whatever. So the New Warriors, they're like the young Avengers. So they call them the New Warriors because they had the New Mutants. So they're like, that's so pretty good. So let's also do a New Warriors, a younger Avengers team. But this very much felt like an X-Men universe type of stories, because it was written by Fabian Nicieza, who was writing X-Men and X-Factor at the time. Here now we get every X-Men Annual or X-Men Universe Annual together. We get the New Mutants Annual, covered by Mike Magnolia. Then we get the X-Men Annual, the Uncanny X-Men Annual, the X-Factor Annual. So they all connect. This is like part 1. The next one would be part 2, part 3 to this story called Kings of Pain. I thought that was real cool, because then they did that with the Spider-Man annuals. The other annuals from every ongoing Spider-Man, and they all connected. And both the X-Men and Spider-Man included the New Warriors in their annuals, kind of to get the team to be on the 2 popular titles, give them a guest appearance, and so they could get some recognition, right? Get the name out there that there's a new superhero team. So this story arc, there was this character named Proteus, which was the son of Moira McTaggart. She's kind of like, think Dr. Xavier, but for the Excalibur team. So she had a very powerful mutant son. And that story arc is back in like the early 80s. Real good story. And they're trying to bring them back in this story right here. Look at the art here from X Factor. Immediately it looks different. It looks almost like it came from a magazine more than a comic book. Because a lot of the graphic novels or like the magazine style books at the time had the coloring were a lot different. So it definitely feels that way. Here's the X-Force team. At this point, they're still being called New Mutants, but they're about to change the name. Actually, in the stories, they're already called X-Force, but the series is still called New Mutants, but it's about to be changed to X-Force as well. Now look at here, the coloring. I really like the way it looks right here. Really enjoyed this. Real old school style. All the red gives you like a sense of urgency. It kind of reminds me of that movie, The Hunt for Red October. They're in the submarine and you see all the lights are red, right? That looks very realistic. The face, like it. Here in this issue, I immediately noticed that Moira McTaggart, we're ushering in the 90s. It's like 92 by this point. So her costume, I guess they're trying to make her more extreme, more cool looking. She definitely stood out to me. I was like, wow, I never seen Moira McTaggart like that. I did think she looked badass though. Here's Polaris showing a little more cleavage, looking a little more sexy. So yeah, they were you're already starting to see the changes coming into the 90s where the outfits and the hair and everything, they're looking a little more crazy. Look at here. All these butt shots of all the girls are facing this way so we can see their ass, and all the guys are on this side. Oh no, there's a girl right there too. But yeah, so we see where we're like it's heading to in the new decade. You know, the extreme era. And this was a really cool fight scene with Proteus. They brought him back to life. But he somehow, to be brought to life, they used another mutant kid that also was going through all these struggles and was full of hate because his life kind of sucked, right? So you got two kids that are full of hate, can't control their mutant powers or their emotions because they're still young. And they're, you know, that spells trouble, right? So this was a pretty cool story. And again, some more booty right there. Let's get back to the extras where we were at. We had this, and then we had a few pinups of like swimsuit issues. And this was pretty cool. We had these card sets, but it only includes the characters that are in this omnibus. So this was the 91. I'm not too familiar with this set, and I think I seen like a few of the cards, and I wasn't a fan. These I really remember a lot because these I liked. I had the whole collection of these and the holograms back in, when was this? So I didn't know who these characters were. Hate Monger, Silhouette. I knew the New Warriors. And now I know who those characters are, right? Because I remember reading some of the New Warriors, I think, a little after I had these cards. And here we get all these, like, the process of writing the plot and how you scratch stuff off, have the characters say this and that, have them doing this in the panel. You're a fan of writing comics or you want to get into the industry, this stuff is real cool, it's real helpful, kind of shows you how to go about it. We see some of the sketches and how Mark Bagley changed some of the costumes. This was the original costume they gave him, and he modified it to this. He's like, you know, I'm gonna make some changes, and boom, it was much cooler. So it shows a lot of little stuff like that. Fan of the extras all the time as well. So I think that's all we have to really say about this book. It had a lot of, like, the stories had the feel of an X-Men book. Again, it was Nicieza writing it, and it was a superhero book. Like the way they bust on each other, clowning each other while they're fighting crime. X-Men do that. The way they all had like different ethnicities. X-Men does all that. And they fight some of the X-Men villains as well. Even Gideon came out right here, who was a character that were really trying to blow up and make him like a big bad. His thing was he always works through the background in the shadows. I don't think they did a great job of doing what they were trying to do with him. He was trying to be like a Mr. Sinister type character. Except Mr. Sinister's a lot better written. I didn't read this part either. I think it just talks about every trade, the trade paperbacks. Here the covers are recolored for the trade paperbacks. Wolverine. Oh, they had a story arc too that was like Days of Future Past, but with the X-Men and the Avengers. It's pretty interesting. It's basically mutants versus Avengers who are superhumans. Kind of felt like Civil War a little bit. This is another big bad they were building up for the New Warriors. That's like their Apocalypse, if you will, or their Thanos. Alright, so this is the end of the book. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave your comments on the comment section. And do me a favor, hit that like button on your way out. Really helps out the channel. Alright, I'll check you guys out next time.